And I asked the Rebbe, if I'm working at Tzach, will I be considered a shliach? Because, they're offering me other things as a shlichus, but I want to be a shliach, but... So the Rebbe said yes. He says, "As matut arbeit is min a shliach." If you're doing a shliach, it's irrelevant where you are.
This episode is sponsored by Machne Yisrael. Stay tuned later in the episode to learn more about the new wedding hall packages provided by Machne Yisrael. I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Herr, an ongoing farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kastel, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, beautiful day today.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here. And there's a lot that I want to discuss with you regarding your shlichus and the work that you are doing till today in Tzach, Tziri Agudas Chabad. Maybe we should start before that and go into the roots. I'm not sure myself. In preparation for this conversation, I found out a little bit. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about where you come from, where the Kastel Mishpacha comes from, etc.
Yeah. I think that it's sort of a bunch of hashgacha pratis that happened over 100 years that brought it to this point. And I'll try to describe the various things which are at l'chayra not connected, but all together add up to where we are.
Sounds good.
Okay. A little over 100 years ago, in Poland, the Slonim Rebbe decided he wanted to visit different rebbeim. We have it in our tradition, the Meister, that when he came to Rebbe Rashab, that he was talking of learning, and there came up the discussion of Va'era el ha'avos, and Rashi said Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So everybody asked, so what else? What's the news? So
which other avos are there?
Yeah, what else could it mean? And so he said, he gave an explanation. Avos comes from the word ava, desire, taiva. That when somebody truly wants, the Rebbe shall reveal himself to. That was his pshat. So the Rebbe Rashab loved the word and called in the Frierdiker Rebbe and says, heard the word from the Slonim Rebbe, that then this word, that ova, comes from the word from taiva. So this is a story. We have in our tradition, this story. It's in our sichas. There's another tradition which I didn't see. I don't know if it's sichas where it is. That he came back and he said he saw the Rebbe Rashab and he had a golden watch in this pocket and a golden watch in that pocket and a broken heart in between. Slonim doesn't have this stuff. This is our tradition. So after he came back from that trip, he came back to his community, and he did he gave a tish, like our version of a farbrengen. Now, my Zayde was a young bocher.
What was his name?
Yeshua Tanchem, not my father. Yosef Dov Kastel, at the time it was Kastelanitz. The Kastelanitz family is a very prestigious family in Slonim, going back to the Talmidei HaBaal Shem Tov. I don't have the whole list, but that's what I was told. And most of the generations were Abonim. It was a Choshev family, and they married very much into the Rebbe families in Slonim. And my Zayde was a Yosem at a very young age. He lost his father, and he was very traumatized by that experience. And the Slonim Rebbe sort of took an interest in him. I think there's some relationship, but took an interest in helping him, develop. So he was there at the tish. This is the story the way I heard it. And at the tish, people, when the Rebbe takes a little bit himself, and everybody grabs the rest. Like we did with the Mazonis, which was really never a Lubavitch thing. It was something we stole from them.
From others.
Yeah. So the story goes that there's even a source, but I don't know how reliable it is. There's Hillel Zaltzman put out a sefer in Samarkand. And he writes a story over there about a Slonim Chassid who was in Lubavitch. Now, I think it's too many interesting comparisons that it couldn't be Mazeda. I mean, how many Slonim Chassidim did you have in Lubavitch? Mm-hmm. But the Slonim Rebbe, when Mazeda went to give it, the Slonim Rebbe took his hand and says, "This is not for you. You should go to Lubavitch."
Shadaim is not for him.
Yeah, you should go to Lubavitch. I sort of heard that story, but I might be putting some pieces together.
Okay.
And the way Zaltzman tells the story, that he heard from somebody who was in Lubavitch, and pretty much some of the details sound the same, but my uncle Aaron has questions about the dateline and everything else. But okay, Kasha. That when he came to Lubavitch, he came with the Levushim.
He came to Lubavitch to Rebbe Rashab.
Yeah.
To Rebbe Rashab.
Yeah, because that's what the Slonim Rebbe told him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there, and he was davening according to their minhag, with a lot of enthusiasm, etc., etc. In Chabad, we don't really have much patience for that stuff. So he said they were really greatifying him. They were really giving him a hard time, showing off and all the rest of that stuff. Okay. So finally, one day, he just said to them, let me tell you how I'm here and why I'm here. Maybe you'll stop giving me a hard time. And he told the story about the Slonim Rebbe told him to come here.
This is all from Zaltzman?
This part is in Zaltzman.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Aaron questions the age and who it was. It says in details, but it sounds somewhat right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told him the story that the Slonim Rebbe told him to come here. Okay, and so that they should stop, that I'm here. Okay, anyway, that's step one. And we have also a story that the Rebbe Rashab spoke to Mazeda, and he told him he should learn Chassidus. So Mazeda answered, but it says over there, before you learn Kabbalah, you have to have your stomach full of Shas and Poskim. Who am I to be learning this Kabbalah? So the traditional way we heard, the Rebbe Rashab said, of my achrayus, on my responsibility. You should learn Chassidus. Now, just to jump ahead a little bit on this point, years later, our Rebbe told Mazeda, you should learn Zohar. And Mazeda gave the same argument.
Okay.
Who am I? And have to be. Now Mazeda didn't know Shas and Poskim, but he said, the Rebbe said, if such Jews don't learn Zohar, who's going to learn it? Mm-hmm. And to make it more interesting, I heard my Zayda moved to Yerushalayim. We'll tell more about that maybe. And he had every Motzei Shabbos, the Slonim Chassidim would come to him from Malka, and every Friday night before, Stolen Chassidim, the oldest Ziknes Stolen, used to come to talk and learning Friday nights. So one day it was Shabbos Bereshis. He opens the door, and there's all these choshev people at the door. And he says, "You know what today is? Today is Shabbos Bereshis. There's 100 pages of Medrash Rabbah, 100 pages of Zohar. I have no time for you people. Slam the door and come back next week." And this is what I heard in the Yerushalayim story. Okay. So I guess he took it seriously, the Zohar thing. And so he did it. Okay, so that's my Zayda. Now, that's the first Ashkocha Pratis is that he was there. The Slonim Rebbe should tell him to go to Lubavitch. Not a common thing to happen. In fact, I don't know if it happened to anybody else. Okay. Meanwhile, go fast forward a bit. He goes on to how long he was there. I don't know. But anyway, it comes forward. He's a Chassidish bacher with all the Levushim, and he's, because of this story with Lubavitch, I think that's why he was in the area, and he needs a job, like everybody else. He's a goin. He knows he was a big lamdan and everything else, but he didn't. So the story goes that the Chofetz Chaim came to Minsk this is known for a certain number of years. So the story goes that my Zayda went to the Chofetz Chaim to ask him if he could help him get him a job with his connections. And it so happens, Hashgacha Pratis number 2. There was a delegation from a small town near Minsk looking for a Rav. And they came to the Chofetz Chaim. And he said, yeah, there's a Bacher, why don't you take him?
He's still a Bacher.
Yeah. Now, the odds, when I picture this, I can't even imagine it. He's a Bacher, okay? Chassidish Levushim. This is a Litvish town and never saw a Chassid in their lives, okay? And it's a Bacher. What are the odds of suggesting something like this for a job?
Right.
The only way I understand it is that it's a very tiny city, which and then who else they're not going to get a major person. They might get a Bacher, like Shluchim do. And he's something take a Bacher.
Right.
And he was a big lamdan, and they were big lamdan on him, so they won it. So ends up he's there, and he ends up doing a shidduch there, Litvish. My Baba passed away in Russia when my father was 14. So obviously I never met her or anybody else. But the way the story is, my Zayda, he's awesome. He's on his own, no family, no one to give advice or anything else. He's looking. What does a bacher know about what he needed in a shidduch? Well, it says in the Chumash, Rivka gave water to the camels. Well, this girl liked to give milk to the cats. Okay, so that's a sign that she has chesed. She's a good person. You should marry her.
Okay.
And she has brothers who will tell me chachomim.
It also says in Gemara.
Yeah. So
okay.
that's all.
It's all the criteria.
That's the criteria. So he marries her.
Okay.
I heard that she had physical problems, this and that. He doesn't know from nothing, and there's no one to tell him don't do it. And there's and what's the options? They're out there and tell me, shidduchim interested in a chassidus bacher. So he marries her, and she has 5 children, and then she dies. Mm-hmm. And my Zayda was able to come to America in 1930, which was also not a simple thing to do in those days. Otherwise, I would be one of those Russian Chassidim who didn't have much of an education.
Right.
But so happens, my father was still here. It was 14. So by the time my father got married, there were yeshivas here. Right. And
so your father grew up his formative years
in Russia.
Right.
He went. And not only that, okay. No, you're saying that. That's also Hashgacha Pratis, how it comes to this, to Lubavitch. My Zayda my Baba was Litvish. My father grew up in that town, that Litvish town. And it was, when it came to a point around bar mitzvah age, approximately, there was a local cheder, and my father was not happy there. He didn't feel comfortable, he didn't like it. The story goes, he ran away from home. I want to find a place where I can learn Torah. So my Zayda pulled him back and said, look, come back home. I'll find you a place after your bar mitzvah. Okay? So he did. So we're going to find a place in Russia.
Not many options.
Yeah, whatever. So this is a third tremendous Hashgacha Pratis. Anybody here is blown away from it. There was a newspaper article written in Russia. Somebody went trying to find which newspaper was it proud of. Okay, I don't know. They didn't tell me. I know what I told me that was told. And the article was written, there's a black cloud over Russia, that there's still a town, it's called Neville, that there are Jews with beards and mikveh water coming out of their beards. How do we allow something like this in our country now? This was the article.
This is already during communism.
Yeah. So this was in 1920-something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the Rav said, "Oh, there's the yeshiva." Advertisement. So, and now I can put another little thing to it. Interesting. When Mendel Futterfass came to America, because of my connection with Rebbe Rashab, I had a chance to be able to talk to him. I asked him, do you know anything about the town where my Zayda was the Rav?
What is the name of this town? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Haradok. Now, it's not the Haradok that everybody heard of. That Haradok is near Vitebsk. This is a Haradok in Minsk.
Okay.
Minsk is in Belarus, capital of Belarus. Okay? different. I was told that the horaos means small town, and every big town had a small town.
There's a few towns that
Yeah.
end with horaos.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So this is what I was told. Anyway, but this is the one no one ever heard of, and so that. So, okay.
Come at Mendel.
Huh? Yeah, so thanks. I do that sometimes. So, okay, so I asked Rabbi Mendel if he ever heard of things. The first time he wouldn't talk to me because he wouldn't talk to anybody. Everybody, stranger, is secret police. But after a year or two, when he got to know me, I got the nerve up to ask him again. So he tells me, I'll tell you. I don't come from that part of Russia. I was never there. I have only one story about that town. When I was in Neville, one day, a Rav came in with a young kid in short pants, and he says, "I want to see the yeshiva." And he says, and they were all shocked. I mean, how do you know about us? Neville, it was everything was underground. It was a secret. So he said, "I read about you in the paper." So and he told the whole story. So then the Rav says to them, he says, "Look. Okay, I see you're here. What you say to Limudim? I'm not going to just leave my son here. I want to know what you say there is." So they told me to learn Chassidus. So this is the way Mendel tells the story. He says, "Yeah? What is that?" So they brought him a Kutei Torah. He sat down for half an hour and was learning it. Came back, "Yeah, acceptable," and left it. And I'll leave my son here.
How does this fit with the fact that he already learned to Lubavitch?
Okay, one second. It's a question. I told Mendel this. Every story has some strangest things. That's not true. That doesn't make sense. I know that. But I pointed it out. So I told Mendel, it's interesting. You're telling a story about my Zayda and my father. Mm-hmm. That he had no connection. He was just telling the story.
Right.
So that's interesting.
You didn't know that your grandfather was the Rav of this town.
Right.
And then he brought your father.
Right.
So your father ended up
in Neville for
in Neville.
Yeah. And he tells, and my father tells the story that he was there when the Frierdiker Rebbe was leaving Russia. And the Rebbe told Chatzef Fagin that everybody wanted to see him before he left. So, but that would be very dangerous if all the Bochum came to Leningrad.
So at this time, was your grandfather considered himself a Lubavitcher?
Not my grandfather, my father.
Oh, your father. So your father went to Frierdiker.
My father was in yeshiva.
Got it. Okay, yeah.
But the word got out. So we told only the elder Bochum can come. But my father was one of the younger Bochum, and he and some of his classmates, Meir Itkin, Pinston, that whole class of 1912. They were born in 1912. I found out some of the other comments. Sonkin, that was all one class, and they heard. What do you mean? What do you mean we can't go to see the Rebbe? Well, no. Who knows if we'll ever see him again or ever see him ever? Okay, so they went to the Mashpia, Nissen Nemenov, who was still a Bocher. Okay, we're giving you a bit of a background, and they started saying, "What do you mean? We got to go. We got to go." And the Rebbe said, I can't give you. The Rebbe said, no. The Rebbe said, only the elder Bochum. So they really, got on his case. You know how Bochum can do that. And finally, he didn't say no with the same no. So they were on the next train. Mm-hmm. They come to Leningrad, and there was no arrangements made for them because they weren't supposed to be there.
This is Simchas Torah?
This could have, I think so, yeah.
It was Yom Tov, yeah.
Yeah. I know that my father was Simchas Torah. That was a different year. Okay, it was a different year. So they came, and they had no place to stay. So somebody told them they should go to the Rebbe's mother. Okay. No, it's Rivka. Rashab's wife. Okay.
Rivka's Rebbe Marash's wife.
Yeah, okay. So they came to her and she says, Nissen's Arbit. He's responsible for this and got him places. So that is a story also.
So that was the only time he saw the Frierdiker Rebbe then.
Okay, so that is also an interesting thing. I assumed that my father saw him. Meir Itkin told his family he never saw the Frierdiker Rebbe. Now, if they were there together, why would he have not seen the Rebbe? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
But you ever heard from him?
I didn't hear from him. I heard from his children.
From your father, you've heard?
My father told me that he was there. I never asked that detail. Did you actually see the Rebbe, or did they kept you outside? I don't know.
Okay.
I assumed that he did. Okay.
But beforehand, you didn't see him beforehand?
No.
Yeah, okay.
So, just saying, so that's that point. And also, Skacha Pratis, that the newspaper got me to Lubavitch and my father. That's also not a common experience.
No.
Okay. Now it goes further. Later, my grandmother, my Baba passed away, and my Zeta had 5 kids, and he was able to get papers in 1930 to come to America. But before that year before was the Friedrich Rebbe came to America in 29.
Mm-hmm. To visit. And so this is written up again. This was a whole discussion. It was written up in the Yuman about Alta when the Tishrei, when the Rebbe was here, what it meant over there. Right.
So he describes the
Chaim Altes.
Yeah. So he writes there. There was Rosh Hashanah, and there was the Haradokia Rov and his sons attended the minyan. So then it was a whole discussion. Who was the Haradokia Rov? No one ever heard of him. Mm-hmm. Okay, so someone said there was a Schmerling, but there was a Schmerling never left Russia, so they couldn't have been.
You're talking about in Riga. In Riga.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but then we figured out that it was my Zayda, and I called my aunt, and she said, "Sure, Papa went with the 2 boys, to the Rebbe."
But the Rebbe wasn't there.
No, yeah, but he went to that minyan.
But they were in Riga on the way out of Russia?
Yeah, they were there.
Okay.
So
your father was there when the Rebbe...
Wasn't here.
But our Rebbe was there.
Okay, then our Rebbe was there. And he told me another story that Simchas Torah, the Rebbe said, all the Tmimim should say L'chaim.
Who told you? Your father told you this?
My father told me.
Okay.
That the Rebbe told...
Our Rebbe.
Our Rebbe told them, everybody should say, all the Tmimim should say L'chaim. So my father said, I'm a kid. I mean, he was a 14-year-old kid. I mean, I'm a Tomim. So the Rebbe said over to him, you learned in Neville, you should say L'chaim. Wow. So that was the first connection with the Rebbe.
Wow.
Okay?
It's amazing.
So this is, again, my father told me this. Okay, so now...
That whole Tishrei was out of ordinary. That the Rebbe revealed himself. And because it was, according to the Hirah, the Friedrich Rebbe, that while he's not there, the Rebbe should lead the Chassidim. There was actually a newspaper article that just came out recently now, like a year ago or 2, about that Tishrei, describing the Fabrengens that the Rebbe led. So that was a very unique. It's interesting that your father was there, Punk, then when the Rebbe was, his galus.
Yeah. So again,
part of the Hashgacha Pratis.
Yeah, and it keeps getting going. Going. So now my father comes to America with my Zeta. My Zeta needs a job. What's he going to do? He has 5 kids to support. Mm-hmm. He ends up remarrying here, but my Zeta became a Rav in Utica, New York.
Upstate.
Okay. Now, the mentality there, he didn't speak English. They didn't want anybody to speak English. I remember in Boston, there was a shul where I davened, that there was like a couple of old-timers, and they fought the whole idea that was trying to hire a rabbi who would speak English to the people. No, we have to keep it Yiddish only. Nobody understands. Irrelevant. The whole idea, and that's how the Rebbe explains the Mishnah and Ovis. It says that it wouldn't go any place unless it's a Makom Torah.
Any daral Makom Torah.
Yeah. I mean, what's the whole Slichas and all about?
Right.
So I was trying to say, if he's going to be doing something, it's something else. That was the mentality here. We want a Rav who's a big Talmid Chacham, and there were big Talmid Chacham in America. And they were writing tshuvas together in Vilna, with the Vilna, and all the Goinim. And there was Sfarim who were printed, Shalos tshuvas of Goinim who were in America. Just because they came here doesn't mean they forgot what they learned.
Right.
But that was the mentality. So they wanted a Rav, a Talmid Chacham, who could really be a Talmid Chacham, but doesn't relate to anybody. And we lost that whole generation.
Right.
And then that whole generation was gone. But so my Zayda was there, and he was miserable. Okay, so one time he told me that they don't say he asked, he needs parnasa. He has to support his family. They said we have a possible hashkacha. Oh, that sounds good. So they brought him to the bottling plant for oil. It's a bottling plant. I want to see how they do it. You want the job or don't you want the job? So, that's how it works in America. Okay. So he committed, I'm never going to do hashkacha unless I know the balabas is a Shemesh Shabbos. And therefore, with Ganela's wine that they gave at the Farbrengen, had his hashkacha together with Rabbi Simpson.
So he had a hashkacha.
He had a hashkacha on that because he knew Ganela's was in Lubavitch.
Because he wasn't Lubavitch?
Was in Lubavitch.
Was in Lubavitch. Uh-huh.
So, otherwise they can always fool me.
So this is he's living in New York City later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
he left Utica and came to Brooklyn.
And that's a story too. Okay, and this is all not Stama stories. It seems that Rabbi Jacobson had a plan.
When?
This was in 1939, 1940.
Before the Frierdiker
Rebbe came, I think. I think it was around. Yeah, I think so. And there was a yeshiva it's still there. There's a yeshiva in Borough Park called Teres Emes Kamenetz that was about to close. They had no money. So he had a plan that to take it over as a Lubavitch yeshiva. Rabbi Rifkin would be the Rosh Yeshiva from Tervadas. And he brought my Zayda here to be one of the teachers.
From Utica.
From Utica. And then up, the whole thing fell through. It didn't happen. But my Zayda was here. Mm-hmm. So exactly what my Zayda did in that time, I don't know. But Mimil, he didn't have that job, didn't have this job. Mm-hmm. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe came in 1940, it saved him. He got a job teaching in Bedford and Dean.
So Frierdiker Rebbe opened up yeshiva, and then he worked in that yeshiva.
Yeah.
So he taught in Bedford and Dean.
Yeah, from 1940 until 1955.
Who did he teach?
14-year-old kids.
Like Sifta, high school.
Yeah, which was a disaster. He wanted. The United States gave a share in Ktsos. Mm-hmm. Okay, he should have been and he gave some shiur in 770, but it was a disaster until he couldn't handle it anymore. From the kids, fooling around and spitballs and all the rest of that, he just couldn't. Finally, he retired. Mm-hmm. He couldn't handle it anymore. But
he did this for years.
He did this for about 15 years,
wow.
And a lot of the people. Who got smicha? He had the smicha
in 770.
In 770, and he signed on the smicha together with Rabbi Jacobson.
So if you have smicha,
so a lot of guys have smicha with his signature on it.
And the yuds and the chafs, have his signature.
Herschel, we got a copy of Herschel Chitrik smicha with my Zayda, and there are other people from that generation that got his have a smicha. So that's who he was, and. So now he's finally in Brooklyn, and then he told me a story that Frierdiker Rebbe called him one day, and said to him, "You should buy a house." So my Zayda says, "Okay," he went back to sitting and learning. Yeah, okay. A few hours.
Was he officially a Lubavitcher or like whatever?
He once spoke to the Rebbe about that. And he says, after 120 years, I'll have kafekela. They'll throw me from Lubavitch and slum in Lubavitch. Okay. So the Rebbe laughed, and it said in his Asmoda, he doesn't have to worry about kafekela. So that was a good line. Okay, that was that line. He had another thing that says that yesh mokim barosh, there's room in the head for 2 pairs of tefillin.
Who said this?
This is a vort. I heard, and. So he said, Lubavitch and Slonim, there's room in the head for both.
He's a unique character.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Now, in Slonim, they say that he came to Lubavitch in America because he had nothing else. Slonim was destroyed during the war. Okay? And that's their version. So, but as soon as he came back to Israel, he came running back to Slonim because he was in America during the war. So he still had stories. He still had minhagim. He had all kind of things that they had lost. So he came over and he was machayah them.
When he lived in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frierdiker Rebbe told him to buy a house.
So so a few hours later, the Rebbe calls him in and said, "No, did you buy a house?" He says, "Okay, I guess he's serious." So he went and bought a house. He bought a house on East 91st and Winthrop.
Where is that?
That's East Flatbush.
Okay.
Now there's about 20 Lubavitcher families on that block. But in 1960, everyone was gone. So he was barely, luckily, able to sell that house for something to set it up.
So he bought the house when the whole neighborhood had already turned?
No. He bought it then, when the Rebbe told him. He lived there
like in the 40s?
Yeah. So he was able to live there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sold it, and that was helped set him up in Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
Eretz Yisrael, he lived like in a building, one room, and a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom, like a combination. My Baba had passed away already. There was somebody who would come every day, put some food in the refrigerator, and that would be what he had all day, and he could sit and learn and do whatever he wanted to do.
And I saw letters from the Rebbe to him at that time.
Yeah.
The Rebbe wants to know why he's not writing more often. The Rebbe says, it's worrying me a little bit, the fact that I don't hear from you. That's what I wrote to him.
Yeah, they were very close. And you have a picture in the what's the name, Yisrael, of the
Kaddish Yisrael?
Yisrael, the Rebbe sitting together with him with a big smile. There's another story that goes with that, what Label Gromer told, but I heard it with the punchline. Okay, Label told the story that it was I believe it was a Shana Rabbah, and before the Nesius, and the Rebbe said that he asked some of the Elter Chassidim, let's make a bringing in the Sukkah together. And the Rebbe turned to my Zayda and said, you know what, when I say a Maimer Chazal, you'll tell where it says.
The
Maramakim. So the Rebbe starts talking. He says a Maimer Chazal, looks at my Zayda. My Zayda's quiet. 1, 2, 3, quiet. So then the Rebbe continued without looking at the Zayda. So that's what Label tells the story. My Zayda told me the story too, but he told me with the punchline. My Zayda said like this, I made the cheshbon. If I know, it's yeshus. If I don't know, it's bushus, embarrassment. I can only lose from a deal like that. Why would I agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The Rebbe wasn't the Rebbe. I mean, they were friends. And Mazeh was older. The other story goes, this is probably in Tafshin Yud, right afterwards, that the Rebbe was coming out of 7-7, maybe it was Yud Aleph, starting to have Yechidus, whatever. The Rebbe was up a whole night and leaving in the morning. Mazeh was coming in the morning to teach. And he sees the Rebbe going out, so Rebbe Mazeh stands at attention. So the Rebbe gives a big smile and says, you too, Rabbi Kastel? Suddenly getting formal. So my Zayda told me, this is what I heard from him, my Zayda, said, I saw a smile on his face and tears in his eyes. And I knew this is not my type of person who can do that. Like it says in Tanya, you can cry and laugh at the same time. There's a different level of person.
See, that's how he knew that the Rebbe...
That's what he told me. It's nicht mein Gleichen. It's not somebody like me. It's a different type of person.
Nicht mein Gleichen. Yeah. Not equal to me.
Yeah.
That's it. Not equal to me.
So this is things that my Zayda told me.
Wow.
And they were very close to the Rebbe. When my Zayda retired, I heard the Rebbe was very upset. But my Zayda just couldn't handle it anymore.
Right.
And he moved to Eretz Yisrael. And this is also, to just give you an idea of who my Zayda was. My Zayda moved to Eretz Yisrael. He said, why did he move to Eretz Yisrael? I didn't want to die in Chutz La'aretz. I'll go to Eretz Yisrael to die. Why should they schlep me afterwards? I'll go now. So he went now. And out just in Eretz Yisrael, they told me, he found an apartment, and he signed a lease for 1 month. Why? I'm coming to die. Why should I waste money? Okay? So for 20 years, he had to renew his lease every month.
Month to month.
Yeah. That was his. It was a different.
I think in one of the letters I saw that the Rebbe was writing to him about maybe learning Chassidus or mashpi and others learning Chassidus in Eretz Yisrael. I think
and especially that it's the throne of the king at Yisrael.
Paltan Shamel.
Yeah. Certainly, if you learn here, we certainly should learn there.
Right.
And the way I was told, again, that Mazeh felt in Nachrayas, there were a lot of Litvisher who were very, anti the Rebbe. And Mazeh felt in Nachrayas responsibility to argue with them and to speak what the Rebbe was. And there is a tape, somewhere in the house, of a discussion he had with Rebbe Rashab. Rebbe Rashab has his own Chassidim, and he was talking about the Rebbe.
Tel the Sanin.
Yeah. In Yerushalayim. So they needed an interpreter because Mazeh spoke very Litvish, and they spoke Ungarish. They both spoke Yiddish, but they wouldn't know. And plus, Mazeh didn't hear well.
Mm-hmm.
So So they had an interpreter. But the story goes that the Rebbe that was talking about the Rebbe, he said how the Rebbe used to cry so much at the mafter, and Zayda was telling him, and all the rest of that, to give them a little bit of a feeling about who the Rebbe was.
There's a tape of this?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I have someplace in the house.
Should find it.
Yeah. And you could barely hear it. And especially, they couldn't hear about it and whatever, but you hear a little bits of what is going on. But that's what Bartley was telling about, who the Rebbe is.
Interesting. And he passed away in Eretz Yisrael time.
He passed away in Eretz Yisrael, and in 82.
Oh, wow.
He went there 62. He lived in 20 years there.
Oh, okay. So what about your father?
Okay. So now, my father... the story's here too. Okay, my father is here in America. He went to Yeshiva University to Mudi Kodesh in Mochel. Didn't get a degree, but he was that was where he went. Either that or Torah Das.
There was the Lubavitch didn't exist yet.
Right.
Yeah, that time.
Okay, and he got his smicha then, and then it's time. Down was another next Hashgacha Pratis major. There was let's introduce my other Zayda.
Your other Zayda?
My other Zayda.
Your mother's
father, David Patashnik, was a Rav and a Sheikhet in Baltimore. He came from Lubavitch Shtetl. We don't know where he learned. But there was those Shtetlach near Minsk, all these little Shtetlach, Bebroisk, and all these type of towns where he came from. And Nusach Shtetlach. And in Baltimore, he was a Rav, and there were like 5 Nusach Rishon downtown Baltimore. Now one of them is a museum. I think that was what my Zayda Shul. And they were all Nusach Hari. And when the Frierdiker Rebbe came the first time, my Zayda was on the committee of the welcoming committee for the Frierdiker Rebbe to come to Baltimore. And the story goes, my mother said she remembered clearly the story, how the thousands of people, everybody were Russians, and they all came from the Shtetl. They weren't from necessarily, but this is the chief rabbi, this is their rabbi.
Yeah, we recently had an article in Der Herr about this visit, and it describes what you're saying, like that so many people, American Jews, this is who they
right.
are. That's
and
the link.
And the Rebbe was standing on a platform at the hotel, like on a porch, and the whole place was full. This is my mother describing it, and the Rebbe was, the Rebbe was still gesund, and I was talking to the crowd, and the story goes that after a couple of days he was about to leave. He went to Philadelphia, he went to other places. So my Zayda was very upset. He went to Rashab, who was there, Garari, and says to him, I understand, the Rebbe came here to make money. You had the crowd. The Rebbe should ask him for money. Rebbes don't do that, okay? So now he's leaving without anything. So, I'm embarrassed. He came to our town, and he's going to leave without any money? What's going on? So he went to Rashab and asked him, could you tell the Rebbe to please stay another day or two and give us a chance to raise some money? So that was unheard of, the Rebbe should stay. But supposedly he did. And the Zayda said it was a lot harder the second time. The first time was they had never seen the Rebbe, and he's not asking for money. And now, people just saw him a few days ago, why should I come back and pay? Yeah. But he said we were able to, and we raised some money. You know what happened to that money?
What happened?
It was 1929.
The crash.
The crash. They invested it and lost it. This is the story that I always heard.
I never heard that they invested it, but in general...
people came to him and advised him to put the money in.
But in general that time, the time that the Frierdiker Rebbe came, and one of the reasons was to raise money for Yidden in Russia, but then the crash happened right then. Yeah,
because and so how did that affect him? Because he was advised to put the money in and make some money while it's here.
I never heard that. Okay,
that's what I heard, and then they lost it.
Interesting.
That's what I
know.
heard.
All the people lost their money. Yeah, that's also a problem.
But I heard, that money also went.
Interesting. Okay.
Again, maybe somebody can correct me, but this is always how I heard it. Okay, so what's happening? So my Zayda is now a Rav in Baltimore, and he has his own kids, right? And he needs shidduchim. So his oldest daughter married somebody there, and my Zayda was not happy. It wasn't Lubavitch, it wasn't up to his standard. So he's very concerned. Now, the Rav in Baltimore was Avram Axelrod, who had been in Lubavitch. And you have a lot of sichas about him, and the Friedrich Rebbe said about him and everything like this. Stories, but for another story. Somewhere else you get those stories. Okay, so anyway, he's visiting New York. He's visiting his friend Rabbi Jacobson, and they're sitting and talking. So one of the things he says, you know what, I have a young lady in my community, and he has a shidduch. Any ideas? So Rabbi Jacobson said, well, we have a bocher here in the community, Kastel. I know we're very close with the father. And they suggested it, and it was a long shot also. My mother was born in Richmond, Virginia. My mother grew up in Baltimore. Taking this greener, this immigrant kid, even though he came, he was 14, he spoke English, but it was a different mentality. Mm-hmm. A kid grew up in Russia, and now, grow up here in Baltimore and whatever. But the way my version of it is, my Zayda said to my mother was very good. I don't like the guy who my other daughter married. You're going to marry him. Yeta. That was the mentality. The father said yes, so he did it, and it happened. So that's how that happened. That they came. We have the letter which is interesting, on Rabbi Jacobson's stationery, signed by Axelrod, a letter to my Zayda saying, I've heard about this in this bocher. We're hearing good things about him. And could be that he's teaching right now in White Plains, New York, in a Talmud Torah, and maybe it's a good idea, and he has off next week or Thanksgiving, whatever he's not teaching, so he can come to Baltimore to meet your daughter, and that's how it happened.
So they got married.
And he got married.
So when is this? This
was in 1938, approximately 39.
Okay. So this is an interesting period. I'm saying the Friedrich Rebbe is not there.
Right, not here yet. Then what I heard when the Rebbe came.
So wait, your father. So your father's considering himself a Lubavitcher at that.
Father in the Neville. Sure.
Yes, he's a Chassid. He's a Lubavitcher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my mother's also Lubavitcher. Her whole family is Lubavitch. And her mother was her father. We don't know where he learned. He came from the shtetl, but her mother came with the name Rochkind, which was a famous family till to this day in Richmond, Virginia, Federation, all the rest of that, were Deiris Lubavitch. That's what I heard.
Interesting. Okay.
So now it comes up like this, Parnasa, right? When you get married, that's one of the things you got to think about. So my father at the time was teaching in a Talmud Torah in White Plains, New York. It's still there, Hebrew Institute of White Plains.
What's it called?
Hebrew Institute of White Plains. Still there. This is in 1938, 1939. Okay. But he wasn't satisfied that this is what he wanted to do in life. So he was looking around. So it was a newspaper article, okay? A newspaper article that there's an ad for a Talmud Torah in Boston looking for a Hebrew teacher. And they're willing to pay $5 for the train ticket to come here from anywhere, whether or not you get the job. Just for the interview. Because they were desperate to get teachers. No one wanted to move to Boston. So my father said, look, here's an opportunity. So he took the offer, he took the $5, and he came to Boston. He applied for the position. It didn't work out. But he said, while I'm here, let me see if there's anything else doing in town. And so it so happens that Rabbi Soloveitchik had opened a school in Boston, Maimonides. It's still there. And he was looking for a teacher. So my father applied and got the job. So now,
did he know him from YU, or he wasn't there then?
He wasn't there.
Yeah, okay.
But it was a position. Mm-hmm. But he was very impressed with my father. In fact, my father taught his daughters, who were brilliant. One of his daughters married Tversky from Harvard. Just give you an idea who they were. And so my father was teaching there for a few years. And then the story goes that, another story, the Friedrich Rebbe came, and opened a yeshiva in Boston. He sent Avram Hecht to open a yeshiva. But it didn't work. And we heard there was a class or two in the back of the Lubavitch shul, a couple of kids. Didn't work. And the way I heard it is that Avram Hecht's wife hated it in Boston. She had no friends. She had nothing here. Her family was in Brooklyn. So he left, or he was about to leave. I don't know exactly the difference, to leave. My father heard the story, and he told me he felt he couldn't see a Lubavitch Yeshiva closing in America. So he went to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he asked him whether he can take it. He should take it. And the Rebbe told him to take it. Okay, so good. So he did. Then he went to Rabbi Soloveitchik, and he says to him, "What do you think, Rabbi Soloveitchik? Should I take that position?" He says, "Why? I'm teaching. I'm giving you. You have two kids at that time. I'm giving you a regular salary. Why would you throw that away to a school with the chances of it surviving more than 6 months are almost nothing? There's a couple of kids there. Who's interested?" So my father said, "But the Rebbe told me to do it." I said, "Okay, the Rebbe told you to do it. Go ahead." 25 years later, when my father retired, the guest speaker at the dinner was Rabbi Soloveitchik. And he still remembered, he said, "I still remember the conversation. I wanted to let you know the position is still open." Okay? That was that kind of relationship.
But the yeshiva still exists.
Yes. My father built it up from 2-3 kids to 300. In fact, one of his kids just passed away. It was a shliach in Framingham, Lazarus.
Yeah.
Was one of the kids in yeshiva. I remember when he came.
Interesting.
There are hundreds of families who are now frum because of that. My father was an excellent mechanich, and he was very dedicated to the kids. The kids felt the love that he had for every single one of them. The kids that came to the yeshiva at that point were two types. One was the kids of the frum rabbanim in the town, that they were a good and they didn't want Mizrahi education for their kids in Maimonides. Some of these came from Radin, they came from different Litvische cities. So, and the others were American or even socialist Jews, but they wanted the kids to know at least Aleph Beis, to be able to read Hebrew, so they can say Kaddish when the time comes. And every year the classes would get smaller. At first grade had more kids. Second, they know how to read already, so who needs it? Then go to public school. And that was the way it was working from year to year.
There was a lot of. I saw that there's.
Right. So you have the frum teachers and my father put a lot of keiches into them. I'll give you an example. And this is something I remember clearly. One of the local kids, not the yeshiva kids, took Yiddishkeit very seriously. And the mother calls up my father one night. "My son didn't come home from school today. Where is he? You're in trouble." So it was a cold night. My father put on his coat, got in his car, and went driving around. And he went to different shul. And he found that the kid was learning and fell asleep and was in his shul. So my father, he screamed at him, "You keep up this kind of shtick, you're going to be in public school tomorrow." Okay? But my father himself went out there, got the kid, brought him home, and showed that kind of concern.
I saw there's a lot of over the years there's answers from the Rebbe to your father about his work in the school.
Yeah, sure. And then there's another thing that I remember. 1 second, I just lost it. That was. Okay, I'll come back.
So, this is where you grew up. You grew up in Boston. Right. When were you born?
I was born in 1943.
So in Boston, that's where you grew up, and you went to Tzach.
Right.
You experienced...
Technically, I was born in Baltimore. There's a story there. Okay, why I was born in Baltimore? My parents were living in Boston because Boston was a very secular city, and the rule was that they wouldn't allow a bris unless the doctor was registered with the hospital. We still have places like that. So my mother said, what do I need this tzara? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my parents to have the baby in Baltimore. It's a Yiddish start. They don't have these kind of problems. And I'll have the baby there. So that's why I was born there in Baltimore. And they were there for a couple of weeks. And then came the story, then an interesting story. Came time for the Pidyon Ben. A month later, my mother's still in the baby and still in Baltimore. My father's teaching in Boston. So he goes to his boss, Rabbi Soloveitchik, and he says to him, "Can I go? He took off for the bris. Can I take off for the Pidyon Ben?" So Rabbi Soloveitchik said, "Why? There's no reason that you have to take off. Why should the kids not learn? But the Pidyon Ben is no problem. They don't have to waste 1 second of Limud Torah. During lunchtime, you take the $5, you go to the principal, who's a kohen, and you give him $5. That's all. You don't need the baby."
Okay.
So that's what they did.
Mamish.
Yeah. So I said, because of Rabbi Soloveitchik, I wasn't at my own Pidyon
Place
Ben.
was to have a Suda, no?
Yeah, the lunch in the cafeteria.
Okay.
They had a suda, the whole school. They had a lunch.
So you grew up in Boston, and like this was your family's
Right.
like the shlichus, like that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
Like the school.
There are the letters that that when the issues came up, the Rebbe sent them to my father.
in Yonim in Boston.
Yeah.
Was there any other Lubavitchers there?
Yeah, you have the Krinskys.
Right.
In fact, there was a letter over there. The Rebbe said, "You sent to my father and to Rabbi Pinchas Krinsky, to my friends Rabbi Kastel and Rabbi Krinsky."
Is it Fidik Rebbe?
No, our Rebbe.
Our Rebbe.
It's in English letters. Yeah.
So, when was the first time you saw the Rebbe?
Oh, that's a very good story. Aaron told you that one? No. Okay. All right. That's a story. The thing is, why didn't I see the Frierdiker Rebbe?
Yeah, why?
Because, my parents were connected with it.
Yeah.
Oh, even goes more than that. When the Frierdiker Rebbe came here, my parents went to Yechidus.
When he came to live?
When the Frierdiker Rebbe came in 1940. So I don't know exactly when, how much later. So they had Yechidus. And they told me, I think my mother told me, that Rebbe Rashab came down and brought them to the Chosn Kala, some tea and crackers. It was unheard of. My father and my mother.
They were Chassan Kala?
They were married already.
Okay.
It was after the wedding, but shortly after. And so it was a big chiddush, a young couple coming to the Rebbe, to the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a famous letter in the family where my mother writes to her parents, her father mainly, in Yiddish, that when the Rebbe came to America, and the first Purim, that the Rebbe was here, and she writes that my husband and my father-in-law went to the hotel to the Farbrengen, and I stay home, she writes. And she's writing there that the Rebbe was, first of all, how he looked, because she remembered him standing, high and strong at the over there, and here how he's zerbrochen, and you can barely hear him, and he's asking, and he's working trying to get money for Russian Jewry. She writes all this in that letter, which we found just recently or a while ago, because she writes to her father.
Interesting.
Now,
but her father didn't come to New York?
Father came, he didn't come, I don't guess he didn't come for that Purim.
But later he came. Because this is right away, in Adar. Right? Okay,
Yeah.
right. I think Rebbe came.
Yeah.
Got it.
So my Zayda and the other Zayda was there with my father. But he didn't come. I heard from, from Posner, who just passed away, that he remembers...
From Label.
Label. That he remembers that they used to walk down the street together. They said the Rav and the Sheikhet. Axelrad my Zayda. Walking on Kingston Avenue to there.
And they would come from Baltimore.
Baltimore, yeah.
Interesting. So why didn't you see the Frierdiker Rebbe? You may be aware that having a simcha and celebrating an engagement of a loved one is a very, very happy occasion. At the same time, can be a very stressful time. The exorbitant amounts and costs that are involved with making a wedding in today's day and age really can take a very big toll on the chassan's parents, on the kala's parents, and all around create tremendous, tremendous stress. Something needs to be done. When the Rebbe started Keren HaChamish, one of the components and one of the needs that the Rebbe was addressing was specifically Hachnasas Kala. In fact, over the years and in recent years, Keren HaChamish has given out subsidies, help, and aid to those in need making a wedding. But the time has come to do something drastically different and to make a real impact. In the last few months, Keren HaChamish has launched a brand new wedding package where someone can make a full Crown Heights wedding for under $30,000. That is a savings of 30 to 50% for an average family on the wedding costs. This is something that is right in line with the mandate that the Rebbe gave Keren HaChamish when he founded it to help with Achnasas Kala, and this is something that will help everyone in the community and will hopefully bring relief and the ability to celebrate simchas in the proper way without financial stress or worry. To learn more information, you can log on to hall.kerenhachamish.org. That's hall, Hall, .kerenhachamish, KERENHACHOMESH.org.
Okay, because you didn't really, those days was very rare traveling from Boston to Baltimore. It was a 4-hour trip, it still is. But I took a train, it was a whole big deal. I mean, later I know my father had a car, but you didn't travel.
Right.
So he never took me. The first time I ever went to New York was a wedding of Ramotel Dubinsky, who just passed away. Okay, he was a teacher in yeshiva. And in Boston.
In Achetunim.
Yeah, in Boston.
So you knew him.
So I knew him, and he was working for my father. And my father felt that you should bring the family to the chasna.
You remember what year this is?
Yeah, I think it was Yud Gimel. You can look up when the chasna was. Okay, in Dubinsky. So then I have a story there.
So you were 10?
Yeah, 9, 10, whatever. And so I was there, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. So it was in a hotel, I think in Williamsburg. And at that time, the chuppah, this is how I remember it, the chuppah was outside, meaning not on the street, on the fire escape. Okay? So I came, I was a kid. I'm just seeing a bunch of chairs and everything else, and I'm playing around by the chairs. The Rebbe comes in. I have no idea what that is. He's going, everybody's following him to the fire escape, and I'm just fooling around. And then, after the chuppah, the Rebbe goes out, and everybody's following him. And that's nice, and I'm just watching the show, whatever. But somebody grabs me and pulls me into the crowd. So, and now I don't know who this is, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know when, and I'm scared. Okay, so it comes to the, afterwards it comes that the Rebbe is waiting for the elevator to go down. So everybody makes a semicircle, and they're jumping up and down and dancing, and I end up in the front. So I'm staying right here, and the Rebbe's right here. I have no idea what the Rebbe is. I have no idea. I just sitting there, and a 10-year-old kid, first time in New York, and everybody's jumping all over the place, and I'm just standing there, shocked. And the Rebbe saw that, and I was about to cry. So the Rebbe walks over to me and says to me, "Was tanzt du nicht?" Now, the Rebbe assumes I know Yiddish, and he's asking why aren't I dancing. And he sees I'm really scared. I'm about to cry. But I look up and I see my father in the distance. So the Rebbe turns around to see who I'm looking at. And then somebody grabs me and starts shaking me up like a milk bottle, because the Rebbe said, "Was tanzt du nicht?" So you got to tanz. Okay? So that was my first experience with the Rebbe.
So you had a Kiruv from the Rebbe right away.
Yeah.
Tashin Yud Gimel. Okay. And you came afterwards? Or not so much?
No, hardly ever. Later on.
So when did you come? So what was the next step, like after Boston?
I was in Boston all the years, and we had yeshivahs with the Rebbe for graduation and other things like that. We came for Shabbatons a few times.
So over the years, you did come a number of times.
Yeah, a number of times. The school arranged Shabbaton, and we slept in Bedford and Dean. So I mean, a couple of kids, there. And before high school, before graduation, we had yeshivahs that Rebbe tried to convince us that before you go to college, we should have a year or two of yeshiva. Some of us did, and some of us didn't. There was a famous sikha that I found it later. That the Rebbe said, it says there, a group of kids from Boston, and the Rebbe told the whole Farbrengen to scream 3 times, no college.
Right.
That was us.
Uh-huh.
Like that was my class.
You remember this?
Yeah, I remembered it, but then later we found it in the sikhas.
No college.
No college. The whole place would scream no college. That was really the campaign at that time. And then the Rebbe asked, we should try at least a year or two. But then we have a story like that. Rabbi Kastel suggested to my father, maybe since everybody's going to college, maybe we should extend the yeshiva for a program.
You were thinking of going to college yourself? This is
No.
mainly for your chaverim.
Yeah, the whole class.
Rabbi Jacobson suggested
that my father that you should make after 12th grade another year or two with Limudi Kodesh and Limudi Chol. So hold the kids for another year or two before they go to college. So my father was considering it. So Rabbi Jacobson went into the Rebbe to discuss it. And the Rebbe said no. Why? Because of the Boston Rebbe. And I told the Boston Rebbe that story later. He said the Boston Rebbe is working with college students. And therefore this could be a competition.
Interesting.
That's what the Rebbe told Rabbi Jacobson. And therefore it didn't happen.
Huh?
I told the Boston Rebbe the story that how the Rebbe was machshav him.
And he worked with college students? That's what he was doing in Boston?
I mean, there was enough college students to do this. Our graduates didn't have to go there.
Right.
Okay? But the Rebbe saw that this would be...
So after high school, that's when you came to yeshiva?
After high school, I came to yeshiva.
Where'd you go?
I went to Newark.
You asked the Rebbe what to do?
No, that was, there were 3 Lubavitch yeshivas then.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Newark.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father felt when I was a kid, first learning to speak, I should learn Yiddish. He said, English you'll always know. So I have no idea how long, and I remember the kids, hey, Grandma, what's he saying? Because everybody's grandma spoke Yiddish. And so but still, after about a year or two, it was all English. But still, somehow or other, it stayed with me.
You knew Yiddish.
I knew Yiddish. When I came to Newark, and Yisrael Friedman came to Fahermi, it was all Yiddish.
Mm-hmm.
And I was somehow able to do that. And the Rebbe assumed that I knew Yiddish. He said, "Was tanzen nicht?" He didn't try saying in English.
Right.
So I was in Newark. The only problem with Newark was that I barely survived alive. The 5 of us were somebody who was a carrier of typhoid. Touched the food, and I ended up spending Pesach in the hospital. Not only that I spent Pesach in the hospital, 5 of us got sick, but I had the worst. Nobody could believe what it was until they figured it out, and they sent me to Boston to be home for Pesach in the hospital. And in those days, now there's a sign, don't do that. In those days, they have their doctors do rounds with their students. And they used to stand in the hallway and tell them what's going on in the room. Now, no one ever told me that I'm in danger. And that's why, for example, Pesach, I was driving them all crazy. The food they brought me from home. But I had high fever. They wanted to wash me down with alcohol. I said, no. Pesach, chometz. Okay? No one told me there's a sakana here. So we just were learning Pesachim that year. Okay? So, no. So the nurses were all cooperated, they're Catholics. Their hands were turning blue, washing me down with cold water. And the whole city said, this kid is crazy. Okay? But I said, no. No one told me to stuck on it, so why should I agree? So this is what we did. And then while I was standing there, while they were telling, I hid behind the door to find out what they were saying about me, because no one's telling me. We said, no, if this kid's going to make it. Because we have only one medication, and that medication is hurting his liver, and we don't know how much longer we can keep it, and then we don't know what to do afterwards. So that got scary. So I said, but they wrote into the Rebbe. The Rebbe said he should be b'simcha. I said, oh, it's right. It's a bacher, no problem. The Rebbe said, b'simcha will be okay. The Rebbe told me when I was 10 years older, I should be dancing.
Right.
So I took that as a hemshech.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Are you saying the Rebbe told you to be b'simcha about your current situation?
No.
No, the
current situation.
Also.
He told me then. I brought it as a hamshach, whatever that is. Okay, so that's where there. Then the question came up: what do I do next year? My mother said, "No way in the world you're going back to Newark. You barely came out alive." So what are the other options? Yeah, so my mother said, "You know what? The best thing would be, go to Baltimore. I have my parents there. You don't have to be in a dormitory, and you'll stay in the house, my parents, and you'll be able to sit and learn."
Learn where?
In Israel.
Okay.
So we would think about it. So what happens, again, Hashgacha Pratis, the American Shluchim came to Boston. It was Penny Feldman, who's now a Mechutin, because we share great-grandkids together, and Avram Ber Blasovsky. They came in American Shlichus. And so happened that Penny Feldman had learned in Israel. So they came up with the suggestion, ask him about whether she go there or Montreal. And he said he felt Montreal was a better experience. So then my mother agreed to write to the Rebbe. So he wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, only Newark, Montreal, or 770. Don't even consider anything else.
There's no Israel in the picture.
Don't even consider that. I didn't say those are the options. Well, Newark wasn't an option. And I was just a year or two out of high school. I didn't feel ready for 770. So Montreal. So that's what I did for 2 years. I ran the day school. I ran the day camp for 2 years also.
In Montreal.
Super Shabbos day camp.
So what years is this?
This is 63, 64.
And 65.
Then 65 in Chav Hey, I came to 770. That was right after Rebbe's mother passed away. I was here that Vav Tishrei.
You were in New York for Tishrei?
I was in for Tishrei, and I went to the hospital that time. I saw when the Rebbe went to the hospital, and she was still in the bed.
Tell me about it.
Okay. We were out there for bringing, and Zelickson was there. And then right after we left, and they said that the Rebbe went to the hospital. The hospital was on Brooklyn Jewish at the time. Now it's Interfaith, but it's over there near Bedford or something like that. So we heard that the Rebbe went. We all went running there
to the hospital.
To the hospital, and so we went. I go to the hospital. We have no idea. We march a bunch of clueless people what you're supposed to do and not do, and no hadracha, no leadership. We're just walking around like a bunch of chickens without heads. And so I ended up we went into the room. So she's on the bed with covered. The Rebbe's staying there with his back to her, looking out the window, and we're just standing there doing nothing. And then they said that the Rebbe told Groner, those who weren't in the mikveh today should leave. Who wasn't in the mikveh? We just came from the Farbringen. Everybody was in the mikveh today. So that didn't work. So finally the Rebbe said, everybody out of here. So, that's what he means. We weren't thinking. He said, we could stay here, do nothing for a few hours, just stand there, look. Okay?
I think I heard the Rebbe said that das ist nicht kein Verbringen.
I didn't hear that. Yeah. Okay, so we left the room, and we drove around the hospital the rest of the day. Then came from Mariv, so we davened Mariv, and we heard the Rebbe said Kaddish, and more details, you can get not from me. Well, we were just walking around, not having a clue what to do.
So then you end up staying in 770.
Yeah, there was for bringing every Shabbos already. And I made the cheshbon, one of the main reasons I like Montreal, there were older bocherim I could learn from. But suddenly I realized I'm the older bocher, so forget about it. I'm going to 770.
And so you were there every Shabbos and Rebbe ringing, so you experienced all of that.
Yeah. Until the wedding.
And you had yeshivahs when you were for your birthdays those years?
Yeah, every year.
Is there anything you want to share from those yeshivahs in?
Yeah. Well, first of all, after I got married. Okay, that's a story also. Okay.
Yeah, but you get married after you have the yeshivahs.
Okay, both. Well, that was just a regular yeshivahs those days. Okay. Afterwards, I was working in Tzach.
Whoa, 1 second. So you got married?
I got married.
So how did you get the Tzach?
Okay. I was in Kiruv, minding my own business, like everybody.
So you got married in Chav Zayin?
Chav Zayin, right after the 6-day war.
Okay.
I met the week after Shavuos.
You got married here?
Here.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is from here.
So you're living in Kailo.
I'm learning in Kiruv. And I got a call one night around midnight, like when everything else happens around here. They were asking, since the Rebbe just started mitzvah tefillin, and we decided we should have someone to coordinate it. We want you to take the job. And this is no money. The job is 2 hours a day. And now, since you're in Kiruv those days started at 11, you can do this job from 9 a.m. to 11 every morning, which is not ideal times, but I took it. It's a few extra bucks, and in those days, Kiruv paid $18 a week. In fact, a group came to Rebbe Rashab and said, look, it's not right. There's 2 people have to live. Could we get 36? He said, no. The money is a symbol from Geld. It's a symbol. It's not, you're not supposed to live from the $18.
It's a symbol.
It's a symbol. So no reason. So 18 is a symbol. Why do you need 36?
2 times high.
Yeah. So, no, 36, 18. So then I was already working in Tzach just for 2 hours a day. And what we were mostly doing then is, this lasted for many years, that arranging that people go to hospitals, nursing homes on Sundays. There for many years I stood there, then with Alma Shagala, Baal Shalom, like dispatching. You two go to here and go here. And there were people who went there for many years, even after we stopped, they continued going to their same spot. It was their kaviyas. This nursing home, that nursing home, whatever it was, the airport, all of these things started from, we had, again, once we had a story with JDL, we're having a rally, and the guys came over to, the Bochum came over to ask them to put on film. So they went to Kahana.
JDL's Kahana's organization.
Yeah. So Kahana
they went to Kahana to what?
To ask, if we can tell these guys what to do. So he agreed. You should all put on film, because film is the best Jewish defense.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That was nice. So they all lined up. We had other stories like that, that we...
So
I'm now in the Kiruv, and then later, a year later, they were asking to offer me a position in Tzach. Now, another interesting thing, most of the work that I was doing in those days was what's called an Erev Chabad. Meaning different organizations, there were no Chabad houses around, different organizations.
So I have a question before. You asked the Rebbe about what you should be doing? Yeah.
I had a couple of hatzos, and the Rebbe pushed me in this direction. And I asked the Rebbe, if I'm working in Tzach, will I be considered a shliach?
Uh-huh.
Because, they're offering me other things as a shlichus, but I want to be a shliach, but, So the Rebbe said yes. He says, as metut the arbit is min a shliach.
That's in Yechidus?
Yeah.
As metut the arbit is
you're doing a shliach, it's irrelevant where you are. Huh. Because for a long time, Tzach was not accepting shlichim in the New York area.
Because shlichus means to go out.
Yeah. People going in, who knows where. It's a fair. You have your schools, you have your clothes. There's no serious nefesh here, supposedly. And but I based on. I'm personally now pushing more and more shlichus in New York, more and more chaver to go out, because that's what the Rebbe told me.
And the Rebbe told you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not disqualify you if you're doing the work here.
Right.
Okay, so that's what I was doing. And I was writing, doing the work, and I can give you one interesting example. It started with mitzvah tefillin. There were 2 Jews. I think they live in 706 Eastern Parkway also, and they davened in the conservative, but they liked mitzvah tefillin, and they were veterans of the American veterans in the hospital. So they decided they wanted to go to the Veterans Hospital every week and put on tefillin with people.
These 2 guys?
These 2 guys. And we did that for many, many years, for a number of years. One day they come to me and they said, we met somebody there in the hospital, and he put on tefillin, and he complained to us that he has a son in India with the gurus, and if we could help him come back. So we put in touch with us, and so I wrote. So how to start? Yeah. I wrote him a letter. One of those airmail letters, saying we met your father and we'd like to, have some kind of relationship. So he wrote me back, surprisingly. He wrote me back, be not like the frog in the bottom of the whale who thinks this is the whole world. Come up to the air and see there's a big world out there. It's not just a little bit that you think. This is pretty much what he wrote me. So, but he writes there that he would like me to send him a Moreh Nevuchim in English. That was interesting. So I didn't know. I didn't know what I should do. What's he going to do with it? He's going to take it and give it to the gurus and everything else. So I wrote it to the Rebbe. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah. So I sent in his letter to the Rebbe and asked him, what should I do? So the Rebbe says, yes, I should send it to him, together with a Tanya. Okay. And then the other thing on the letter, which I didn't address, but the guy writes to me, he says, in the future, however, if you want to continue corresponding with me, please address me by my title, Guru, blah, 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 whatever his name is. So I didn't even address that. Because to me, I didn't care. If you won't let me talk to him, say, not. There are more people out there. But the Rebbe saw that in his letter. And the Rebbe replied to that. He said, I should reply to him that I'm willing to be meichel my kavod for you. You don't have to call me rabbi, as long as I don't have to call you that thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I did.
And this is the answer b'ksav, which has been printed.
Yeah. I did that.
Around.
Okay. So that was the Rebbe's answer on the letter, which I didn't ask about.
Right.
And I kept contact with this guy. And eventually, the story gets more interesting. Eventually, he meets a young lady whose father was Jewish in Germany. And they were all in India together. So, and she's showing some interest in Yiddishkeit. So I said, hey, maybe this is the way to go. That, if she's showing interest, maybe she'll be Megayer, maybe she'll bring him along, and we could do something with this. The only problem is we find out that his father is a Kohen. So Giyah doesn't work. So the question came up is, we wrote to the Rebbe Moshe about this. The Rebbe Moshe said, look, who said he's a Kohen? We don't have to believe his father is a Baal Tshuva. His father doesn't really know what he's doing. But there's no chazaka here. And he was sort of Rebbe Moshe was sort of leaving the door open that we could continue the conversation. But I came to him, and he said, no way. I'm not going to insult my father like that. That I'm not going to be a Kohen. It means he's not going to be a Kohen. He's considering himself a Kohen. I'm not going to do that. And he refused to do it. So what happens? They continued to live together. They never got married, and never Megayer. My stories don't have the nice endings that everybody else's.
That means they're real. You started talking about the Erev in Chabad.
Yeah, so the Erev Chabad
Erev Chabad.
Yeah, Erev Chabad in those days there were no Chabad houses. So the conservative, the Orthodox, the Hadassah, everybody would like to have a speaker from Chabad. At a meeting, you need some kind of program, and we were cute.
The Lubavitch was cute those days.
Yeah, so we came, we told a few stories, sang a few songs, and whatever, charge them $25 or whatever the evening, and so now I had to get speakers. So I tried getting Young Light. It was a headache, unbelievable. You got a young man, he commits himself. Oh, we couldn't get a babysitter. Sorry, my wife needs it to go out. It wasn't happening. I couldn't run a program like that. It's not reliable. So what'd you do? You went to 770, and we got a Bachram. There's Halmanis Friedman, Lipsker, all these guys got their training from on-the-job training. Mm-hmm. That I would get them and send them out. I was a shikir. So I would send them out, and there we go. And it was working. There was a car rental on Kingston Avenue, Chanovich. If you could, for $25, whatever it was, you could rent a car for the evening, and you could run into the bacher, got a bacher, send him to the car, go, and it went. Then one day, the Rebbe says a whole sikha that a fatah should not be happening during Seder. So, Gewalt, these programs are 8 o'clock. Seder finishes 9:30. No one's going to do a program starting at 10 o'clock. So it so happens I was going to have yeshivahs. That's how it came up. I was having yeshivahs for my yom haledes. So I went in, I asked for a bracha for my yom haledes. I asked for a bracha for the Pekisha that was coming up soon. And I wrote to the Rebbe, help. What do I do? As far as the program. The Rebbe just very carefully, he says, give me a bracha for the Yom Haledes. And he says, and for Pekisha, it's only once or twice a year. It shouldn't be too hard to get the bracha. And I didn't say, Rebbe, I'm talking about 4 times a week. I'm not talking 2 or 3 times a year. But I didn't have the guts to say that. So I didn't. So then I came out and I said to Reb David, should we cancel this whole program? I can't commit people on the way it is now without bracha. So David came up and said, look, tell him to ask Rishus. They should ask Reb David for Rishus, and then they can go. So that's...
His Reb David's using both of his hats as Tzach and...
Right. So that's what we did. And on his achrayas. And we were able to do it. What?
I know the yeshiva in Miami got a hira that even though the Rebbe said that Hafatzas Hamayanos is outside of Seder, but they got to answer that Yechidim, like individual Bacham, are allowed to get Rishus.
So I didn't have that. I just had to rely on Reb David.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you mentioned the Pegishas. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So that was, now just on the same topic, when I was trying to get Jungelite to go to these things, which would make things, if they would go. So I once got to Beryl Baumgarten Oshon. He was visiting, so I went over to him. Maybe you could do an Erev Chabad. This way I can feel like getting a man to go instead. So he says to me, I'm going to Chiddush tonight. Okay, well, that's a good argument. I can't argue that. But then he turns around and says, oh, Adarabah, the Chiddush is at 4 o'clock in the morning. This will be much earlier. Adarabah, if I go, it'll be good hachana. So he agreed. He went, and then he told me later that he went to the Rebbe and he told me he just came from an Erev Chabad, and my Chiddush was Gorander, she said. It was a different type of... That was nice. And then we have another story with Pegisha. Chaim Gutnick was here. I was trying to convince him he should speak at the Pegisha. We had our regular speakers, but I wanted, but he's a personality.
So I asked about the Pegishas. So one of the things that you were doing is you became the one responsible for the Pegishas? That was a big...
part of my job.
Okay.
Yaakov Chanoka came up with the ideas. It was his project.
Right.
But Papel, he was in Boston, and to make it all happen was my responsibility.
Okay.
So I tried to get Chaim Gutnick to agree. And he said, look, I speak a whole year. I'm here on vacation. Leave me alone. Over and over again, get off my case, et cetera, et cetera. I was following him in the hallway. He was going to Yechidus. I was staying with him in the America's room. Get lost. I said, okay, I finally got the hint. So right after that, he comes out of Yechidus. Where's Kastel? The Rebbe told me I should speak to the Begisha in uniform. Okay. I said, I didn't write...
chaplain uniform.
Yeah, I didn't write anything. I didn't know. This was the Rebbe's idea, not mine.
I just want to say that the idea that when someone asks you to do something, to speak, to bring, whatever, and that you should say yes, that's something from the Rebbe that I don't know if I don't know if everyone still knows about that, but then for sure not. So here's an actual example of that he told you no, but the Rebbe said, obviously, you should do it.
Yeah, so then he came back looking, he agreed to it.
But he didn't ask the Rebbe about this, the Rebbe on his own.
I don't think he'd asked for it.
Right.
I don't know what he would expect, anything else, but but that was the Seder. Another thing, one of the things I was involved in is Simchas Beis Sheva. Okay, that was all. That's how I got to know many of the older Chassidim. My job was to organize the whole thing.
To send people to Arei Asada, to other outside places.
Right. I remember as a kid, people used to come to Boston. It was just going back that far back. They would come a train, they'd go to Boston, then to Springfield.
So the Rebbe would speak about this from when you were a kid?
I don't know. I don't know what he's speaking. I just thought that they came.
Okay.
I don't think they came on their own. Must have been. So we I had a whole group.
I know somebody from Brookline who's a Lubavitcher man today, and he told me that was the main click that made him a Lubavitcher was the Lubavitchers coming to his Young Israel in Brookline.
On
Sukkot, yeah.
Okay. But I'm just saying that was much later.
Yeah, and probably in your times when you were arranging it.
Because in my times, I don't think we sent Boston already. We sent so it was done but whatever. So we were sending to Springfield, to Baltimore.
And you would ask Alter Chassidim to go.
Yeah, and we had people who had kvias. Mendel Futterfass would go every year to New Haven. He wanted to see David Deitch. Okay, and Label and what's his name from Tzach and Eretz Yisrael, Leibov would go. Rabbi Mentelik would go to Newark because his family came from there. Rabbi Marlowe would go every year to Newark because also he came from there. Rabbi Mentelik used to, I would have to organize the car. So the car didn't come exactly in time. Nu and who is the car? And he was standing, on my nerves. And I have 5 cars leaving it now. Yes, sir, soon they'll be here, whatever, running back and forth. I have a cute story that there was a character here living in Crown Heights, a real character, and he had issues. And one time he calls me, around 5 o'clock when I have 5 cars leaving. And he calls me up and says, I can't do it. I want to commit suicide. So there is a logic to this, but legally I have to call the police. Until somebody said that. But at that time, I wasn't thinking. I have all these cars, and you're calling me now? I yelled at him. You're calling me right now, Simchas Be'Sheva. I have 5 cars. I have no time for you. I want you to promise me you won't commit suicide until after Simchas Torah. I wasn't even thinking. It was just sort of a reaction. Yeah, okay.
That was your suicide intervention.
Yeah. And it worked. And he died a number of years later. I was at the funeral, but that worked.
Okay.
that was part of what was going on. But then there's another interesting story that's not really connected to this, is when my son was born. It's interesting anyway. My oldest son, he was born the first night of Pesach. And so the Seder then at that time was, on the beginning of the 9th month, you would go to Yechidus for bracha.
That was a Seder by Chassidim.
Yeah. So we did. Then I got into line to get the matzah, Erev Pesach. And I walked over to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked me, is she still home? So I said, when I got into line, she was. Okay, so I came home. I told my wife, isn't that strange that the Rebbe should say that to me? And she says, it's going to be soon. So that night, she had the baby. Okay, that night, it was later. That night,
the night of the Seder.
Yeah, after the Seder. At the Seder, I decided to go to the Rebbe's Seder. I never went before because I was out of town. As a Bocher, I was always out of town. So this is the only time I ever went to the Rebbe's Seder, upstairs.
Okay.
So I went there. I come home, and she's not home. Where'd she go? Well, we lived on Lefferts, across the street, and at the corner was the hospital at Brooklyn, with now is Beis Rivka. So she walked over. Okay, no one's home. We had all the plans, if it happened Shabbos, what, when, where, but she just walked over herself. I come home, she's not home. So I walk over to the hospital. I was hoping that's where she was. Yeah, okay. So then I went home and I went to sleep. So she said, what? You went to sleep? You left me here? Now they didn't have things like breathing. You have to stay, the husband has to breathe and all the rest of that stuff. I said, look, what am I gaining here? Why don't I just sit here and pace back and forth? I mean, I have things to do tomorrow. I might as well get a sleep tonight, and then I'll come back tomorrow. She never forgave me for that. Okay. But that was the reality.
I don't think it works like that today.
No. I don't think it worked then either, but that's
how you work.
That's how I work, because I didn't know what to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And the week later was the bris. So I walked I was staying by my in-laws in Borough Park, the Blau, so which is another story. So I came back and I came to the Verbringen with a bottle of wine for the Seder and told the Rebbe there was a bris today.
It was on Pesach.
On Pesach, Achron Shel Pesach. You born the first day, it's Achron Shel Pesach.
Oh, the bris was in Borough Park?
No, so it was here.
Okay.
No, bris was in Borough Park, right? And then I walked in for the Verbringen. And so I told the Rebbe that the Rebbe asked me, what's the name of the baby? So I'm trying to think, how do I say this? So I said, Anomen Nochen Tzamach Tzedek. I wasn't not going to say Menachem Mendel. And somebody said, you should have said the Rebbe's name. I said, no, not me. That's not for me. I just said Anomen Nochen Tzamach Tzedek, and I got a bracha.
Yeah.
So that was that. I mean, the Rebbe was looking out for me.
Right.
Taking interest.
Right. I know over the years you had quite a few horaos with your work in Tzach. What comes to mind?
Well, one I gave. Okay, I'll tell you an interesting story. It was not mamash hora, but this is what everybody wants to know, and I just can tell you as much as I know. Okay, we know that Pegisha started. We had 2 weekends. Boys and girls had 2 separate weekends. Well, it changed. Everyone wants to know, did the Rebbe okay it? Or what's the story?
You're saying that it was together?
It was together. No, it was 2 separate weekends. One went for men.
What changed?
Now we came together.
Right, it came together.
Yeah. So the truth is, it happens is that the shluchim were telling us we can't leave our communities 2 weeks in a row. 1 weekend to bring the boys, 1 week the girls. It's one or the other. So slowly we saw it was petering out. So I don't remember asking the Rebbe the question. That's what everybody wants to know. I didn't. I can't imagine I didn't discuss it with Rebbe Rashab. Or else I imagine
a lot of the horaos b'chlal to your work was through the David.
Yeah. Generally, I didn't write in. Everything was pretty much, most well here I see I did. But a lot of times it went through him. So I can't imagine that he didn't ask. But Papel, we made that decision. And a few years later, I get called in to Rabbi Kastel on this. Why? Because in Detroit there was a machlokes going on between Rebbe Rashab at Silverberg. The Silverberg was doing singles weekends, and Rebbe Rashab said, "This is not our shita," and he was fighting it. So he said to him, "What do you want? They do it in New York." So Rebbe Rashab called up Rabbi Kastel. What do you mean they're doing it in New York? How are you talking? So Rabbi Kastel calls me in together with Rebbe Rashab and said, "Bring me your brochures for the last 5 years." Okay, so I bring the brochures for the last 5 years, and he's looking it through, and it says over there it's got to be in the Brooklyn Jewish Center. Brooklyn Jewish Center, it's only Torah. First thing he caught me. I mean, this is a place,
Chanukah never walked in there because it was conservative.
Right. Even later he wouldn't walk in. Right. Kids who had to get married in young Israel. Okay. But this is the first thing he caught me. I said, this is what people know it as a Brooklyn Jewish Center. I'm writing a brochure. I'm not writing anything else. Okay. But then he looks through and he sees the word singles. Aha, singles. I said, yeah, but it says they're couples, singles. I mean, it's for everybody. He said, you really let me have it. You should know that because you're undermining the tznius of the whole community. The girls in Mochachana know a whole year this is treif. And because of you, now it's going to come kosher and it's going to break everything. And he uses the expression, ein apotropos la'arayos. There's no responsibility for undermining morality of the community. And I told him, so I say, look, I was shocked. I said, look, if this cost me a lot, cost you money? I thought you sold your soul for money. They told me, you're getting money for this. You're such a bottle, you did such a thing, and you cost you? Yes. Okay. Anyway, he kept on, and he kept up this thing. So finally, when it's all over, I finally got the nerve up. I said, Rabbi Kastel, he's my wife, by the way, he's my wife's uncle. I said, Rabbi Kastel, by the way, I thought I'm doing the Rebbe's kavanah with the Pekisha. If you're telling me what I'm doing is wrong, I'll stop. I won't. I don't want to do against the Rebbe's rules. This is what so he backed off. So I said, so then Rabbi Kastel, what do you want? should be upstairs and downstairs. So upstairs and downstairs, everybody's going to be in the hallway in between. That's not going to work. So finally, it's all over. I go to Rebbe David and I said, Rebbe David, I'm completely confused. I have no idea what am I supposed to do. So Rebbe David said, do what you're doing.
Continue.
Continue.
So that's the story.
That's the story. It's not the story everybody wants, that they wrote to the Rebbe.
I didn't. Maybe it's important to... No, I'm just thinking now. Maybe it's taka isgehalten to do it together, but it should be... The organizers should be mindful. Be mindful of making sure that it's done in the proper way. You know?
And there's another point which I told the story recently, and somebody reminded me that also one of the things we agreed on is that at every Pagisha I'll have a shotgun on board. That's not stamazay. And it cost me tens of thousands of dollars that every year I had a shotgun on board to interview, and they made a couple of dates, from the people, and followed after the Pagisha, followed up with some dates. I still have it, but now I'm not paying. I have a volunteer, an older lady, who still keeps these numbers and calls. And over the years, a couple of people got married. So in other words, it's not hefker. It's there for a purpose of a shidduch. So that's what happened with that.
So the answers that you did get were saying there were some instances that you did write on your own.
Yeah.
Not to Rebbe David.
Like here, you have a story here where you see that I don't remember, but I see the story. I see that I wrote in. This was in Lamed Daled. There was a rabbi from Pennsylvania, and he had a son who was involved in with the gurus and things, and it says over here that Motzei Shabbos Yud Shvat. And he came, and we were able to convince them to come to Farbrengen. And then later on, to convince him to go to Morristown. And therefore, we asked the Rebbe's bracha, that he should come back and do the right thing, etc., etc. So this is an example of
things that you write to the Rebbe.
That I wrote to the Rebbe. Then another thing you put on the list over there is the video that they have with the Galach.
So what's the story with the Galach?
The story with the Galach is interesting. The Galach comes to my office. He tells me like this. He was born Jewish in Glasgow, Scotland. And he converted to Christianity. And his parents sat shiva for him. Okay? And later on, even when he started having questions, he said, I can't go back because they sat shiva for me. So it's over. So he became a galach. He was a bright guy. He's a Jewish guy. He got his PhD. Became a psychologist. And he has his practice is in the church. So the church gave him a place to live. Church gave him a car. Gives him customers. And everything he has from the church. And in New Jersey, and he would go lecture for Christians against Jews in different places, and I guess he got paid for that. But lately he's starting having stakes in what he's saying, and so what do you want from me? I can't continue doing this anymore. I want to come back to Judaism. So what do you want from me? So the thing is, however, got to make a living. Everything I have belongs to the church. As soon as I reject that, I have nothing. No money, no place to live, and no practice. So his idea was that maybe the Jewish community will hire me, that I can go debate for them against the Christians. So I said, offhand, I don't know who's offering that job. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he was married. No, he wasn't Catholic. His wife, he was married to a Jewish lady. How did that happen? She was a Jewish lady, it's a widow, very lonely. And she was on a bus. They saw a poster, Yoshka loves you. Oh, somebody loves me. Send it up. She went to the church and she converted. Okay? So now we have this nice Jew, and somebody thought it was a good shidduch. Okay? So they're married. But now he doesn't know what's going to do. So we decided. I spoke to my. He was she was from Philadelphia. I spoke to my father. He says, there's no such thing. No one's going to hire him. So what do you do? So we decided he left for a while, came back, and he decided we're going to ask the Rebbe for dollars. So I went over to this. You have the video. I went over to the Rebbe with him, and I introduced him, and I told him that he's a galach, and he needs a bracha for parnasa. He wants to come back. He wants to be parnasa.
You told the Rebbe he's a Yid.
Yeah. So the Rebbe wanted to know his Hebrew name. They gave him the Hebrew name, and the Rebbe said, when he says for the galach, he said, he forgot about that a long time ago.
That's what the Rebbe said.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So okay, so fine. And that was it. So we come out, and now I say, what do we do now? Okay, he still needs a parnasa, and he didn't get any really serious brachas for that. So what happened was, he left the church. He moved in with his wife in Philadelphia. She still had an apartment from before, and he lived another year, and he died. And when he came to have a proper Jewish cemetery, and we said Kaddish for him. So that's that's an interesting story, and I brought him to the Rebbe that time.
Yeah. The Rebbe told you, you wrote to the Rebbe about doing chaplain work. The Rebbe rejected that? What was that?
Yeah. At one time, I was in the hospital, again in the office, and the Brooklyn Jewish Hospital had now merged with Interfaith. And there were still Jewish doctors there, so some patients, people were still going there, and but not many. So at some point, I was offered a position to be a chaplain over there, and I figured if I do it, it's not taking a lot of time, and this way I can meet the doctors. We can have some kind of shpah on the doctors. We can shiurim. We'll try and do some things. So I asked the Rebbe about it. I figured, how you go once a week or something like that and visit a few patients that are there. The Rebbe said, it's not for me. That it'll take away from my work in Syracuse Chabad. Now, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I mean, I don't think this is a hero for everybody. A lot of guys, I push a lot of guys. It's a good opportunity to have some real muftzayim. You're coming in and now as an outside volunteer, you're part of the system, and you can accomplish a lot of things that you couldn't otherwise. So I didn't take it as a hero, from general. I took it that this is a protest ticket from what I have to be doing at Tzach. It would be a pizur nefesh. It would be take me away from that.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other things that you have with you here?
This is just an interesting letter that somebody wrote to the Rebbe. He's a professor in Kingsborough, and he writes the Rebbe that about Entebbe. It says that what the Rebbe was saying, that this is a ness. He agrees with that 100%, and he feels that this is something that Lubavitch should make a whole campaign out of, because he has students who said miracles happened once upon a time in Avraham Avinu. It doesn't happen anymore. And being able to show that things are still happening today would be a big chizuk. That's what he writes to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe gave it out to us.
Rebbe sent you the letter.
Yeah, because it's campus, the college. Originally, I think the Rebbe's original plan, we had a thing called College University Council, and we had a number of professors on it, Block and some others, and and I think the Rebbe's original plan was that we should be responsible for campuses around the country. Later that changed because as the Chabad houses, each Chabad house is responsible for their own. But I even have an answer that a shliach from upstate, not from the Tzach area, wrote to the Rebbe about some issues they're having, and the Rebbe sent it to Tzach. So I say that I'm not taking that as a raw that we have some kind of authority over there.
Right.
But that's how I understood it. That at that time, the Rebbe felt that we had responsibility to the campuses all over. Like maybe we didn't do it. Maybe we didn't develop it enough, so therefore we went elsewhere. I don't know, but that was at one point that was the way how it worked.
Right. Okay. Then there's this answer that you have?
No, that's we have this answer. When we were starting to open the Chabad houses in Manhattan.
So at some point, Tzach became responsible for sending out shluchim in New York.
Yeah. Again, how that worked, I'm not sure, but yeah. And our responsibility was the 5 boroughs in Westchester and Long Island, and Staten Island was part of the boroughs. Okay, and that's our responsibility to bring shluchim and to organize it and et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Further north, you have Reuben in Albany and Garari in Buffalo. So that's not ours. That's America's.
Okay.
Okay, so this story here is with NYU. When we opened NYU, Eli Cohen at the time, there was a svara that we should have the name of the campus, the name of the shlichus should be Chabad of the Village. The Village was a very hot place that a lot of Jewish kids were going to the gurus, the drugs, and it's concerned, and a lot of people were worried, and financially they would be willing to give money to Chabad to help save their kids. Mm-hmm. And that was the svara. So we wrote into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe replied at the time, I found this answer. I mean, we all knew it the whole time, was we never opened Chabad of the Village. Now it gets a little technical. The neighborhood has changed completely. That it's not the drug center of New York anymore. It's now young professionals. There are more drugs probably in North Williamsburg than there are over there, mm-hmm. and there are communities. So Pale Shluchim did go into those areas, and we have West Village and East Village, because a lot of the way we figure it's not about the village, and there are other villages. In Long Island, it's also they call it Village near Stony Brook. But so we felt that it didn't go into this category here. But the Rebbe writes here, Do you know what village represents with the special nishenis that there are going on there, and etc. If you would know, have an idea what the village represents and what would mean to be Chabad of the village, and here you wouldn't be even asking me that question. Mm-hmm. I sort of got the message that wasn't going to happen.
So that was an answer to you, or that was an answer to Tzach in general?
Probably in general.
Yeah.
My Zeta in Baltimore, my Zeta was the Rav in some of the Lubavitch Youth downtown. They closed. And they had cemeteries and they had money. So there's a question what to do with that money. So there was one svara that a Rav from Israel wanted to open a shul in the suburbs, and he agreed according to the bylaws it should be nusach hari, and give me the money. Mm-hmm. That was one svara, and there were a number of different svaras what to do with the money. And so the Rebbe sent Rabbi Jacobson to my Zeta, because my Zeta was the last living member of the board. So he really had the daya. Mm-hmm. So he came up with the suggestion that opened the first Chabad house in Baltimore, Itcher Springer. Uh-huh. That paid for the first thing. There was a fire, and then other things. One thing led to another thing. And right now my brother-in-law is the Rav there, Lisbon.
In Baltimore.
Baltimore. But that was sort of started, the whole thing was that the Rebbe sent Rabbi Jacobson to discuss with my Zeta. My Zeta told me also, my Zeta was very close with the Frierdiker Rebbe. And he told me that, that it was very hard for a Chassid to change Rebbes. He was close to the Rebbe. He did what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said, he sent him shluchas. Zeddy used to have a Tanya shir for the Talmidim and Yisrael in his house every Friday night. And my Baba would make great pies for them. Mm-hmm. When whoever came to learn Chassidus. And I met a number of Rabbanim in Yisrael that they remembered the Tanya shirim of my Zeddy in Baltimore, in his house. And the Rebbe writes to him, to my Zeddy, that, about to encourage him to continue the Tanya Shiurim. Also, the Rebbe writes, there's another letter that the Rebbe writes to him about that Havamina about that one of the shuls that wanted to get the money from the cemeteries had a microphone.
Right.
And the Rebbe wrote a very sharp answer that that we should not be encouraging or helping any shul with a microphone.
Right, a microphone and the mechitza, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, the Rebbe you shouldn't join with such a shul.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else comes to mind from the various pulas or the things that weren't you part of the one year the vad of the Hachnasas Archim?
Yeah.
What was that story?
That was an interesting story. Okay, every year Moshe Yislavsky used to come to run the Hachnasas Archim. One year he wasn't able to come. He wasn't up to it, so he wrote into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe. Exactly how that worked, there was a decision made that they should make a vad to take it over that year. And on the vad that was decided, but I'm not sure whom, I was on there, and then it was Shalom Horowitz and Herschel Krinsky.
Mm-hmm.
And we were supposed to be the committee. And we're supposed to help raise the money, help arrange the food, all Hachnasas Archim. Moshe used to complain to me, people would show up, with kids with special needs that they hear. No one tells them in advance. Suddenly it's Tishrei, the place is packed, and now a guy comes in with 5 kids, and this is there, and somehow or other, miraculously, he find places for them to stay. He would rent, and sometimes he'd get it back in not in such good condition, and he had to fix it. I mean, another thing he told me once that he was thinking of getting a committee of ladies to help his wife with the cooking. So he said he got a committee, and he says he realized I got a committee of chiefs. I need workers. Not people are going to give me ideas.
Yeah.
So this is. I mean, he used to but that year he wasn't here, so we were given the job, including help raising the money, et cetera, et cetera. My responsibility was going to be the treasurer. Whatever money is raised, I'll have it, and I'll write the checks, which was helpful later because some people they claimed they didn't get paid, and it doesn't. I had all the records. Okay, so but the story goes like this: the seder was that the second night of Sukkot, the Rebbe would speak to the Yorchim in the Sukkah, and what I didn't know is that the Seder was that Moshe would go to knock on the Rebbe's door, and then the Rebbe would come out and follow him to the Sukkah. That he's inviting the Rebbe. Well, they told us that we have to do that. Knock on the Rebbe's door and take the Rebbe to the Sukkah. No way we're knocking on the Rebbe's door. So we worked that out that we don't have to knock on the Rebbe's door. He can figure it out himself. They were here. So we were walking, but we had to walk first. So we had to walk in front of the Rebbe. The Rebbe followed us to the Sukkah. Now, just picture this. We're coming to the Sukkah. Sukkah is packed, no inches. And we're walking in there now with the Rebbe in back of us. Now, the way it was set up was there was a table. On top of the table was another table and a chair where the Rebbe sat. Okay? So we're coming in, and where do we go? So I was there in front, so I made a cheshbon like this. There's a little space on the table, between the edge of the table and the next table. So I just dived in, and I was lying flat on the first table, next to the table, like that. And there was a table, and then there was the Rebbe. Okay, I was lucky. The others pushed themselves back, and they were getting pinched and pushed. We've been sitting here for an hour, and you're going to just walk in on us and like this, and they had a hard time. Meanwhile, the Rebbe comes in, the Rebbe says the Sicha, and then the Rebbe gets up, and he's going back to his room. So he goes down, and then suddenly the Rebbe turns. He's by the window of Merkus, turns around, where the younger light? I have to bring him back.
The Rebbe would wait.
The Rebbe was waiting there.
Mm-hmm.
So they told us, the Rebbe was waiting. So we jump up, and we try to get through the crowd, And I remember my kapot completely, all the buttons went flying and everything else. And the Rebbe was staying with a big smile, watching me climb over like this, like, or whatever, with a big smile. I just noticed when I was there. I didn't know the others. And we finally got down. The Rebbe turned and followed us back to his room. That was an experience.
That was that. Okay. Is there anything we didn't cover?
I'm sure, but the main thing I'm trying to bring out is, the way I see it is, from my concern, the Eibishter was guiding me through all these steps. Any one of them, I wouldn't be here today. Okay, my father, my Zed came here with 5 kids. Okay. There was no Lubavitch Yeshiva then. So my father had a brother and 3 sisters. The 3 sisters already were growing up in Russia and were already infected with the socialism. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing Yiddish got left with them. The brother came here, was 2 years old. So my Zayda put him in Terevadas, became a serious Talmud Chacham. His kids are all frum. And his daughter is the Mechaneches in Beis Yaakov of Yerushalayim, and her kids all married Soloveitchiks in Yerushalayim, sitting and learning. Her husband also is a guy who's sitting and learning his whole life, and she's supporting him. That's why she grew up. So I'm just saying, there were so many things that could have changed that I wouldn't be here today.
Right. Okay, so we Sheinu Matev Chalkeinu.
Yeah.
Okay, and Yashikeach, appreciate very much you sharing all of this, and your work with Tzach is continuing till today. So, Yarech Yomim Amam Lachte.
Amen.
When I heard your age, I was very surprised. You seem much younger than that.
I try.
So it should continue like that for many, many years.
Amen. Amen. So I'm just saying that, but my family would like to hear these stories because, again, they heard pieces of it, but I tried to put it together in one hemshech.
Okay, so I think you did a good job. Not only your family, but many, many others. Yeah.